Let me know if this sounds familiar. Nuh-uh, the Great Darkness wasn't made by Vandal Savage. That was a different Great Darkness. Nuh-uh, you're just spreading misinformation to everybody. Nuh-uh. Okay, I guess I'm just gonna have to hold your little hands and read the entire comic book to you, just so you can understand that it's actually you spreading misinformation to everybody. So, Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes was supposed to come out before Dark Crisis 7, but for some reason it got delayed. So it came out afterwards when it was supposed to come out before. If it had come out before, it would actually make way more sense as to why everybody was saying in Dark Crisis 6 and 7 that the Great Darkness wasn't real. It's because a lot of the superheroes finally understood at the end of it that Pariah was just crazy and didn't understand anything, and that it was coming from somebody else. So all of that is explained in Legion of Superheroes 5, 6, and 7. So I'm going to pick up in Legion of Superheroes number 5, because the first 4 are just lead-ups to this, and there's not really much going on in it. So let's start with Legion of Superheroes number 5. So what's going on in this panel is that Brainiac in the 31st century is finally understanding that the Great Darkness is attacking every point in the timeline, in the space-time continuum. So it's happening in the regular 21st century, it's happening in the dinosaur era, and it's happening in the 31st century at the end of time. So what's happening here is he's finding out there's a temporal disaster unfolding around us, hence my aged appearance. Brainiac 5 is worrying about all these things, and he's trying to figure out how to fix the issue of the Great Darkness attacking, because he feels like he has no control and it's all crazy. This is madness. Please listen to the computo for information on how to evacuate. And he's trying to speak to the other Leaguers in the 31st century. So what's happening here is that Batman learns that somebody sometime in the past had told him to watch out for the Gold Lantern ring. So the Gold Lantern there actually does show up, and Batman's like, hey, wait a second. We were told about the Gold Lantern ring in the past, so we need to watch out for that. Give me your Gold Lantern ring before this growing time void consumes all of us that's above us in the sky. And then the Gold Lantern is like, you know what? I am not supposed to give this ring to anybody. Who warned you of this? Who warned you of the Gold Lantern ring? And then the bomb drops that it's a time-traveling scoundrel named Epoch who came here to cause a mess looking for your ring. Epoch, you know the name? Yes, we know the name, but they don't, because way back in Justice League Odyssey, Epoch arrives and is like, what's going on here, Perpetua? I've never heard of Perpetua, and I exist in every single timeline. I'm a time traveler, and I have no idea who this person is. A Great Darkness, that sounds like something I could just revise with, some kind of implicate time revision machine, which is what he tried to do, but he got blown up at the end of it. So, of course, Epoch is the crux of this. So he's like, Epoch, I don't know who that is. Epoch said you needed your ring to fix a time-traveling mistake that he made. We lost him in time. Remember, at the end of Justice League Odyssey, that is what happened. So people who are claiming that Justice League Odyssey is not connected to the Dark Crisis and Incarnate series or Justice League versus Superheroes, and you're all wrong, because they're referencing it right here. I've been trying to tell people this for the last 2 years, by the way, and I still get comments on TikTok and YouTube, people saying, no, it has nothing to do with this, it's a different series, it's not, no, it isn't. It's supposed to be part of the Justice League, the Dark Crisis series and Incarnate, and it links all the way back to Justice League Odyssey, which is something only I talk about on YouTube. You won't find this information anywhere. If you can find another person on YouTube, please let me know. If you can find anybody else on YouTube who links all of these comic books together in the way that I'm doing it, and is trying to tell you that the Great Darkness wasn't real because the comic book told you so, and all of these comics are linked together. Metal, Death Metal, Incarnate, Justice League Odyssey, Dark Crisis, and Justice League versus Legion of Superheroes 2022. And they're all linked in the same story. They all link back to each other. I've been trying to tell you this for the last 2 years. So if anybody knows any other content creator anywhere besides me trying to show this to people, please let me know in the comments. Well, try to post a link or let me know who they are, what their name is, because I want to go congratulate them because they're right and everybody else is wrong. So what's happening now is that they're figuring out what is wrong with the ring. They can sense that there's something wrong with this ring, and the ring was given to them by the elders of Oa out in the future. So the people in the past timeline, which is where Batman is from, are having problems with this. They were told by somebody in the past that something is not right. So they try to take the ring from him, and the Gold Lantern ring says he took an oath. Just give him a second. What's the connection between the gold and the Green Lanterns? Hal Jordan is not going to know what to do about a Gold Lantern ring from 1,000 years, and he meant 1,000 years in the future. So we move on a little bit, and the Gold Lantern tries to flee, and he tries to get away from everybody to protect his oath because he feels like everybody's trying to villainize him and try to take his ring, even though he's a lantern and he's trying to protect everybody. Now he feels that this new league is trying to take his power. So they're saying, goodness, the great darkness is so much bigger now. Every time one of us gets anywhere near this thing, something bad happens. But that's not because of him. And it's the Gold Lantern trying to justify all of this stuff. I took an oath to be a lantern, and these leaguers are wasting time making false, and he was going to say false accusations. And so they keep trying to take it, and Batman is like, you know what? Just try to calm down. I'm Batman. I'm going to get my way anyway. So please just listen to me. Come back and we'll talk about it. And they go back to their headquarters and talk about it. And so then Hawkgirl finally mentions that her little team has found something important. And all of the Leaguers leave to go find out what she was talking about. They end up finding Lex Luthor's Legion of Doom headquarters just sitting there. And what he says here is he's like, oh, it's picking up some interesting dark matter energy too. There's residue. I've never felt anything like this material before. It seems to have absorbed some of the great darkness. It's our first real clue. And then they say that, and they confirm that this would be the original Legion of Doom's headquarters designed by Lex Luthor. And we first experienced that in Justice League 2018 during the Perpetual Wars. So the psychic members of the League decide to do something that they don't really want to do. They're going to merge all of their powers into one and amplify themselves by doing so. And as soon as they do that, they learn a cosmic truth that just kind of rings out of existence, and they try to tell the Leaguers about what is happening. So while the rest of the Leaguers are trying to find out where Epoch is lost in time because they feel he's the key to everything, Batman's told, hey, wait a second, don't interrupt us, by the psychic Leaguers who just merged. And the first thing that they say is like, we were just working through what happened to us. Who is Vandal Savage? I merged my being and saw his face, and oh, he's a monster, immortal, a failed conqueror. Did we just figure out who's behind all this? Okay, and as soon as that happens, as soon as that is said, the great darkness envelops all of them like a lightning strike and hits the entire League, and they get transported into the great darkness. And first off, they think they're dying, and then everything goes white, and there is Vandal Savage, who says, so, that's that. I am Vandal Savage. I have traveled long and far, forward and backward. What I discovered is that the world was far better without you, the age of heroes. You ruined everything. So after a great deal of thought about my place in the universe and my true purpose, I decided to get rid of it. The Age of Heroes no longer exists, but I do have one confession to you Leaguers and Legionnaires. I could have done all of this without you even knowing it happened. This part where I made sure you all felt the great darkness, the slow burn of true hopelessness and helplessness. That was my gift to myself. I had to endure a great deal from you. Okay. And he tries to leave after that. And then that is the end of issue 5. Issue 6 picks up in the Old West, in the late 1800s, in the past. So now you have to understand that the Leaguers know Vandal Savage did this, and Vandal Savage decided to leave in the future. Now remember, that entire event was taking place in the 31st century. Now we're traveling back to the late 1800s, thousands of years before this, and he has captured a variant of Batman in a jail cell, and he's about to kill him, and this is where he reveals his entire plan. Now that the age is over, I think we can all really appreciate how you were the worst. There's nothing to you. You're the least special of all of them. And of course, he's making fun of Batman, who he hates very, very much. And we scroll a little bit further down where he decides to really reveal his plan. How, Batman says, how did you do it? How did you create a great darkness that wiped away an entire timeline? So this Batman variant figured this out before anybody else. And Vandal Savage confirms that yes, he did make the great darkness. He finally comes out and begs for the answer. Don't kick yourself, detective. It took lifetimes to put this together. Also, again, you're mourning a timeline that never happened. It never happened. You never happened. The Green Lantern Corps never happened. They're a tech that I used to rip your world apart. Even that never happened. The Great Darkness never happened. Green Lantern. Hundreds of years. So just as Vandal is about to punch this variant of Batman to death, he punches through the brick wall, and lo and behold, the time travelers and the Legion from the 31st century traveled back to the late 1800s where Vandal was and stop him and then send him into prison. And they imprison him inside of the Gold Lantern. Inside of the Gold Lantern Ring. You are inside the Gold Lantern Ring. I know now. You have been for quite some time. As soon as we discovered you, we removed you from reality with our combination of our powers. While you were playing Cowboy God, the Great Darkness was dealt with and contained. And although your darkness severely damaged essential time elements of the time stream, reality is intact. Why put me through this charade? For justice to be served at this level, they need multiple levels of confession: psychic confession, metaphysical confession, and verbal, and now we have it. Thanks. So, then the Guardians of Oa appear to lay justice upon him. The creators of the Lantern, here in the 31st century, we have fully discovered your sinister truth. You are a great darkness. I do not in any way, shape, or form acknowledge your authority over me. And then they try to sentence him to non-existence, which the other Leaguers feel is very, very cruel, but also justified. So they say that it's because of the damage and severity of his time travel crimes. He must be removed from all existence. So Vandal pulls out one last little trick. He has a small ring of his own and stuck some of that Great Darkness energy within it, tries to fire it at another member, and they say, there it is, the source of the Great Darkness. And Vandal turns around and says, yes. And then from that point, he continues to be obliterated by the Guardians of Oa. That was close. We removed the ring and its power from this reality. Thanks, Elders of Oa. Thank you for this entire experience. So, where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with a lot of fans in DC Comics who are unwilling to accept that the big bad guy of the last couple of years, the Great Darkness, was in fact made by Vandal Savage, and it was once again set up in Justice League Odyssey as a future element that would become important, which is why Epoch told us that time revision would erase Perpetua and the Great Darkness. So we know that the Great Darkness came from a future place. We know that the Great Darkness was not real. We know that the Great Darkness in Incarnate 4 is linked to this and was never real. This exposition by Dr. Multiverse is now confirmed not accurate. Why is it not accurate? Because the Great Darkness didn't exist before the Overvoid or the Light or the Multiverse or anything like that. It was a fabrication made by Vandal Savage, who tricked everybody into believing it was real. That includes the Empty Hand, that includes Darkseid, that includes every single other person. So, if Perpetua and the Hands are also saying that the Great Darkness is coming, but the Great Darkness wasn't real, okay? They tell Wonder Woman that the Great Darkness was on the way, and they need Wonder Woman's help to fight it when it arrives. So if that Great Darkness is not real and doesn't loom above the Hands, that means the Hands are also not real. Get it? Because that entire location is not real. It's not that hard to figure out when you read the comics. The problem is that a lot of other scalers do not link all of these comics together. They don't read the comics, and then those who do read the comics are actively trying to censor it and lie to you about it. They want to lie to you about it because they want the Great Darkness to be the strongest. They don't like that Mandrake from Superman Beyond is way stronger than this. They don't like that the cosmic armor is this strong. They don't like that the Overvoid is supposed to be the ultimate thing of all. They don't like that. They don't like being proven wrong, so they censor it and they change the information that they give you. Every single one of them who doesn't tell you what I just told you is objectively wrong. Now, I'm basing this on the comics. I am not basing this on my preferences. There are no preferences in anything that I just said. Not one word, not one iota of my interpretation. I'm reading right off of the pages. Okay? So a lot of fans said for a long time that Justice League Odyssey is not linked to any of this. It has nothing to do with this, except it happens to be the actual crux of the entire Metal series all the way to the end of Dark Crisis. So that's Metal, Death Metal, Justice League 2018, Incarnate, Infinite Frontier, and Dark Crisis. All of that explained in Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes, the ending of an era, with Vandal Savage being behind the entire thing. So thank you for watching. I said before that I would never make another Great Darkness video, but I can't believe that, like, after the last 2 years of me trying to educate people on this, the misinformation got worse. It actually got worse. People completely ignored it and make up some of the worst, dumbest counters that you can ever imagine. No, it wasn't this. No, it wasn't that. Nuh-uh, you're wrong. Okay, well, great. You have an interpretation. That's fine. I'm going to stick to what the comics said. I'm not going to inject any bias into this. I'm not going to inject any of my opinion into this. I'm literally going to read out the comic panels that nobody else wants to read out. There is no debunking this, okay? I get this all the time. Didn't a certain person debunk you on this Great Darkness thing? No, they never debunked a damn thing. All they did was use their own interpretations to justify why they feel it isn't accurate. Whereas their feelings have nothing to do with what was actually stated in the comics. Your opinions are not debunks. You need objective information to debunk. Just because somebody claims they debunked somebody else doesn't make it true. When the person reads out the entire comic and all the relevant panels, that's the objective answer. The objective answer is not when some other content creator decides to say, nuh-uh, I debunk that, here's why, I'm not even going to tell you why, I'm just going to say it, and look, that's another series, that has nothing to do with it. Well, it's really disingenuous to say that, especially when Justice League Odyssey is referenced in Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes as the crux of everything. Epoch was the crux of everything. Vandal Savage was behind the entire event from 2015's Metal series to currently right now in 2024. the end of 2024. That's it. It was explained in the comics. Again, not my opinion. I'm simply reading off of the panels. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. I know it's a hard pill to swallow. I get it. You think the Great Darkness was supposed to be something magnificently special in the cosmology, and Incarnate 4, the exposition of Dr. Multiverse, said this and that. Well, I'm going to show you something right now. Dr. Multiverse got her cosmic insight from the crack, okay? The crack is, well, it's not really even explained very well, but it was inside of her, and Darkseid ripped it out and then stabbed the Empty Hand with it. And then the Empty Hand is like, yeah, that was all part of the plan. We've been building this plan forever, and this was this last piece of it. Well, how was the crack the last piece of it if this is a brand new thing that Dr. Multiverse was given? You see the little clues that the writers give you over time, and readers are supposed to question that, and they're not supposed to just blindly listen. That's how comics and books and movies are written. You know, they have certain tropes, they have certain writing elements, they have foreshadowing and things like that. That's how you're supposed to read all of this. You're supposed to question it. You were not supposed to just go with it. Now, my favorite part of this is in Dark Crisis 7, where Dr. Light just pops in. She comes back from a hiatus of decades. We have not seen her in DC Comics for decades. Okay, and now she's the most important thing. How did she get her powers? Where did she come from? Why does she suddenly absorb the light? Where did that even come from? It just kind of happened. It's a MacGuffin. She just came out of nowhere, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna fix everything. Great. So she absorbs the light of creation, okay, which is already around the multiverse, and then she uses Flash's Speed Force to move the light around the multiverse. So the light was already there. Okay, it was already around the multiverse. Now, according to the cosmology, the Great Darkness is above the light, okay? So what the comic is implying is that the light was penetrated by the Great Darkness easily, and it enveloped the entire multiverse. Okay, ignore that, because the comic book also tells you that the portal that the Gentry and the Empty Hand were making in Incarnate 4 and 5 was supposed to be the birthing zone for the Great Darkness to come through. So that is a huge contradiction, okay? So they're telling you that the Great Darkness is above the Overvoid, but it can't get through the light, if you believe the light is the Overvoid, but it's not. So I'm just going to go with that for 1 second. So the Overvoid light is in between the Great Darkness and the multiverse. So how did the Great Darkness get through the light to begin with? Okay, think about that. Dr. Multiverse had to absorb the light to then spread the light around to push back the Great Darkness. But the light was already there before all of this happened to already have been pushing back the Great Darkness. Also, ignore everything I just said, because the Empty Hand said no, they're making a doorway for the Great Darkness to come through. Dr. Multiverse absorbs the light, and then the funny part about this is that in all of DC history, which is something a lot of other content creators who try to scale and debate, and I'm not talking about educators. There's a huge difference between educators like Rob over at Comics Explained, who is magnificent. He's not a debater. He's not a hostile, discussionist like we are. So he doesn't do the kinds of videos and informational things that I do and my little community does. We're debaters. We do things a little bit different, and we're trying to prove hierarchy, whereas Rob is doing the unbiased, neutral thing where he's explaining the comic books to you. He's doing a great job with it. And so there's a whole bunch of other content creators just like that who don't do what I do. So I'm not including them in that when I say the other content creators. The other content creators, like the hostile people in my little discussion group, have no idea that Vandal Savage's villain team-up is called The Light. So we know now that Vandal Savage is entirely the cause of the Great Darkness, and to defeat the Great Darkness, Dr. Light had to absorb the light, using the light as a method of defeating the big bad. So it's a ploy from Vandal Savage. It's a joke, essentially saying that if you want to defeat the big bad, you're going to have to use something that is linked to me, my light. My team is called the Light. So I'm not saying that Dr. Multiverse absorbed his team, his villain team. I'm saying the word and the name the Light is a reference to something that is associated with Vandal Savage. So to him, it's hilarious that the heroes are going to have to absorb the light to defeat the great darkness, when the Light is the name of the villain team that Vandal Savage leads.